Hello, everybody. I thought I would talk today about everybody's favorite subject and what everybody contacts astrologers about, which are relationships. There's a lot of different types of relationships. We can have relationships that enhance our own individual path. We can have relationships that we find a lot of meaning in. And we can equally have relationships that come together because those two individuals together are meant to produce something that they wouldn't have been able to create had they been separate. And for that specifically, we look at the Saptamsa chart. Saptamsa chart shows the co-creative capacity of a relationship, whereas the Navamsa chart, for the most part, it tends to show, is this a relationship that we find meaningful? Is this a relationship that we feel that we could commit to, right? Sometimes you can have a strong Navamsa chart, you can commit to the relationship, but you and that person coming together don't really create anything meaningful, but you can commit to the relationship. And sometimes you can have a relationship where you and this other person create something really wonderful, but you may not find much meaning in it. Ideally, you want to have a little bit of both. But I'm not going to focus on both the Saptamsa and the Navamsa today. Today, I'm just going to focus on the Saptamsa. And I'm going to do that mainly through talking about the Varga Deities connected with the Saptamsa Deities. What a lot of people don't know is that each divisional chart in astrology has deities that are connected to it. If you understand those deities of that divisional chart, it helps you to pull a lot more subtleties out of the horoscope than you would be able to do otherwise. And it's a concept that isn't really used widely in astrology, but if people would explore it, they would find so much more meaning in their horoscope interpretation. And this is something that I teach on my extensive Varga Video Course, which is available now for purchase either in full or in 1/4 sections. You can purchase the course through my website at the link that you see above. So let's go into talking about the Saptamsa deities. First of all, let's talk about the Saptamsa. Let's revisit what we were talking about initially, okay? Which is the Saptamsa relates to many different things. It's one of the charts we look at for children, because basically children are something meaningful that comes out of two people coming together, okay? The Saptamsa chart also indicates what two people can create together. Do these two people coming together create something meaningful? But interestingly enough, if we examine the Saptamsa chart, we can see how those energies come together. We can see even a lot of the sexuality within the relationship. We can see the potential of the relationship itself through the strength or the weakness of the planets involved, and equally through the Saptamsa deities that are connected to it. So, for these particular purposes, if you're looking at the Saptamsa chart, any relationship indicator, whether it be Venus for men or Jupiter for women, or in addition to that, your seventh lord, right? In addition to that, your Dharakaraka from the Jaimini Karakas, any of those in these particular Saptamsa deities that we're going to talk about next will create these specific results. And so we're going to go into a PowerPoint presentation, and if you'll be patient with me, we'll switch over to that. So here is the first of the Saptamsa deities that we want to talk about, and that is Chara. Okay, so really these aren't actual deities, they're energies, right? But they're important to understand because these represent powerful creative energies which can help us to understand the nature of a relationship, right? How the relationship is coming together, whether that's really the best reason for the relationship to come together or not. And in this first Saptamsa deity, we get something really interesting, which is Chara. Chara, as you can see from the slide, is any corrosive liquid such as saline, alkali, acid, etc. So the Chara Saptamsas represent energy, represent creative energy that gets repressed and suppressed to the extent that it reaches a boiling point. And so the Chara types of relationships, so in other words, if you're a woman and you have Jupiter in a Chara Saptamsa, or if you're a man and you have Venus in a Chara Saptamsa, or your seventh lord, or Darakaraka, we won't revisit that again, but just so you get the idea. If they're in this Chara Saptamsa and they're strong, then it represents, having energy that's pent up. So you finally find yourself in a position where you're in a relationship and this energy has a chance to be released and has a chance to be creative in a co-creative partnership with another individual. So if this planet is weak, well, you likely find yourself in a relationship that you're getting into just because you have a lot of pent up, well, for lack of a better way to put it, sexual energy. And that's never the right reason to get into a relationship, just because you haven't been in a relationship in a while. Okay, so the Chara Saptamsas, when they're weak, there's more of a potential to get into a relationship because you haven't been in a relationship in a while. And that's not the best reason. Okay, the next Saptamsa is the Kushiro Saptamsas. Kushiro means milk of any type, including the milk of plants. So when we've got a strong relationship planet in a Kushiro Saptamsa, this is a relationship that can be really good and very nourishing for both individuals, as well as creating something meaningful together. If this Kushiro Saptamsa is weak, we may find ourselves in a relationship where we're not feeling nourished, where we feel that the relationship is draining all of our vital energy rather than contributing to our vital energy. Okay? Then you've got the Daja Saptamsas. Daja relates to coagulated milk, sour milk, yogurt, right? When you've got a positive relationship planet, a good supported relationship planet in a Daja Saptamsa, that relates to a relationship that is perhaps not perfect at the outset, but it can be improved upon to create something nourishing. As we all know, yogurt is something that's very good for you, but it comes from sour milk. So initially, it may seem like it's not something wonderful, but it's something that can be very nourishing. It's something that can be very good in the long run. It just needs to be transformed, and the relationship needs to be worked on. If you've got a negative relationship planet, maybe negative is not the right word, but you know what I mean. It's an afflicted relationship planet in a Daja Saptamsa, then that's going to relate to relationships that can have the tendency to turn sour somewhere down the road. Or the relationship itself is not really the best relationship. And you may think it's going to give you nourishment, but instead it's just going to turn sour. Okay? So then you have the Aja Saptamsas. Aja is another word for melted ghee or melted butter. In some versions of the translations for the Saptamsa deities, Grita is used instead. So Aja relationships relate to relationships that give a high level of nourishment to both individuals and help those individuals to create something together that equally gives a high state of nourishment to both parties and potentially even to other people. When you've got a weak Aja Saptamsa planet, well, then there may be one individual giving a high state of nourishment and the other and not receiving it back, or there's not a high state of nourishment in general for the relationship. So moving on and looking at our Ikshurasha Saptamsas. Ikshurasha Saptamsas, if it's a relationship planet, relates to a relationship that has a lot of energy. When these two people get in each other's company, they both get revitalized, they both become enthusiastic, and they both want to really focus on what they mean together and what they can create with each other. right? If you've got a planet that is compromised and it's in an Ikshurasha Saptamsa, well, that's going to relate to one person perhaps having energy where the other person doesn't, or one person having to contribute so much energy to the relationship to the extent that they become somewhat drained. Or in general, it can relate to a relationship that just doesn't have much vital energy to create anything, right? But instead is somewhat just, superficially sweet, right? As in Ikshurasha, meaning sugarcane juice, but beneath the surface, it doesn't really have the energy or the vitality to continue. Then you've got the Madhu Saptamsas, also known as Madhya. Madhya is another name for honey, or Madhu is another name for honey, right? Which is equally highly energizing as the Ikshurasha Saptamsas, but it's focused along one line. So let me clarify that. Madhu Saptamsas relate to those relationships that we go, I'm really going to stick with this. One pointed focus on the relationship itself is really going to stick with it. Okay, and so when you've got an afflicted planet that's a relationship planet in a Madhu Saptamsa, then that means that we perhaps stick with relationships that we really shouldn't stick with. Or we get into a relationship where the other person sticks with us, even though we kind of are really ready for the relationship to end. Or perhaps the other person is smothering or overbearing. This next one I feel is really important, and I encounter this one a lot with people when they're thinking of getting back together with their partners, and those are the Sudajala Saptamsas. So Sudajala Saptamsas, as it's stated here, can just naturally adjust to the situation. It will accept its creative role and it will adapt to the relationship. Now, when you have two parties in a relationship, and those two parties want to be in that relationship, and they recognize, if I sacrifice a little here, and the other person sacrifices a little there, if we adapt ourselves to the relationship, we can create something really wonderful together. Well, that's the example of a positive Sudajala relationship. And the negative Sudajala relationships, those I encounter a lot more. Those are the types of relationships that an individual either gets back together with a partner, or they get into a relationship and they find themselves in a position where they're adapting to the relationship. They're not being true to themselves because they have such a strong desire to be in a relationship that they're willing to sacrifice themselves, but the other party is not usually willing to do the same. So it's interesting, if you approach these Varga deities, and each, like I said, each Varga chart has different deities that really contribute to an overall understanding of the area of life that the Varga chart is associated with. And through examining these deities, you can understand so much more about an individual. And if you'd like to learn how to work with this particular technique, plus many more techniques such as the critical planet in each Varga chart, the critical houses in each Varga chart, and how to link the different Varga charts together and equally link them to the Rashi chart so you can understand how to do a reading that really takes into consideration all of these specific things, then please do feel free to purchase the extensive Varga video course, which is in the upper right corner of your video. He says as he sticks up his left finger. Okay, because the video mirrors it. And so the extensive Varga video course is at the link above. Thanks a lot for watching this video. Sorry to shrink my head over here. I just recognized I used the smaller video panel. Until next time, please do take the very best care of yourself. Bye now.